You feeling brave today? Well, you're going to get the best view because you see all the pictures. So on Friday we had July 4th, right? And we've been celebrating freedom. Do you know who we are celebrating freedom from? England. They were in charge of us for a long time, and we are celebrating that we get to determine our rules. We don't have other people telling us what to do. So if we're free, how does that work? I mean, you can do anything you want, yeah? Yeah, okay. Right, you can play all you want, but you're not entirely free because your mom wouldn't let you just play all you want, would she? And if you did bad things, the police would stop you, and the neighbors and friends would stop you. And if our country did bad things, other countries would gang up and stop us. So even though we're celebrating freedom, we're not saying we can do whatever we want, are we? And that's what I want to talk about, because when we think about free, we think about just that. I can play however much I want, right? That's what freedom means, is I can do whatever I want. And so that's what we need to talk about. Now, before we go into that, I just want to remind you, last week I was talking about the opposite, ways in which we can be trapped. And I was focusing specifically on ways that we can be blinded. And you may remember I gave the story of Balaam not seeing the angel. He was blind to the angel and he almost got killed. And then there was this other story of the Temple of Wisdom, where people who think that they are wise enough can't see it. So I was inviting you to think about your blind spots, the ways in which you're trapped. And today we're going to be talking about the opposite. We're going to be talking about the ways in which we can become free. So here's something the Lord says. If you abide in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free. The people listening to him answered and said, we're Abram's descendants. We have never been in bondage to anyone. So how can you say you shall be set free? Jesus answered them, most assuredly I say to you, whoever commits sin is a slave of sin. And a slave does not abide in the house forever, but a son abides forever. Therefore, if the Son makes you free, you shall be free indeed. Now, if I'd asked all of you, not just Faith, what makes you free? Without this passage in mind, I'm guessing that nobody would have said, the truth. The truth makes you free. That's not how we think about freedom. You know, what would you have said? I can play however long I want, right? I can do whatever I want. And if I'd pushed you, nobody's going to tell me what to do. I get to determine my own destiny. But actually, that's not so far off. Because right now, we have angels who are telling us good stuff, and we have evil spirits in our lives that are telling us lies. And when we buy into the lie, we get in trouble, right? Hit her, it'll make you feel really good. Just imagine. We don't want to think of a real person. Or steal that. Oh, that'll be so fun. No one's going to catch you. Now, what are those bad guys really saying? If you could see inside them, they would be saying, hit her, then I can come into your heart and I can have control over you. Steal that. It's going to make you really unhappy. That's what they're really saying. So they're actually telling you a lie when they say, do that bad thing and it's going to make you feel good, because they actually want to take away your freedom. That's what it means by whoever commits sin is a slave of sin. You know what these are? Here, I'm going to get another one. They're handcuffs. You can stick your fingers in each side. Just stick a finger in. Stick it deep in. Now try to pull it out. Oh, your fingers are too skinny. Do you have try a bigger? Yeah, there you go. Does that work? Oh, okay. So I'm going to have to show you. Okay, this is the problem with. See, now if I pull. I'm pulling pretty hard. I'm stuck. Do you know how you get out of it? You have to kind of push in, and then you can pop it out. So when I didn't know the rules, I was stuck. But when I knew the rules, easy peasy, I can get out. Okay? So I'm practically ripping it apart, and I can't get out. And now I can. You can take one and try it later if you want. It's actually kind of fun to figure it out. So, whoever commits sin is a slave of sin. That's a pretty miserable picture. Could you imagine being like that? That'd be no fun. Can you see that? Whoever commits sin is a slave of sin. And all the negative feelings we get are, that are leading us to do bad things are designed to do that. And maybe you noticed the picture on the cover of the handbook. The Lord says, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." I like this picture. If you can't see it, you can look on your program. But here's the thing: you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. But a lot of the times, the truth tells us things we can't do, right? You can't steal, you can't lie, you can't hit, you can't gossip, you can't have your friend do your homework for you. All of those things. That doesn't sound like freedom, does it? But I want you to think about this. Imagine if we did all of those things and we obeyed all of those rules and all the other rules. And right now, everybody's cars were unlocked and their keys were just sitting in the car. Your house was unlocked because, nobody would ever take anything. You never heard anyone say anything nasty about you. You could walk all over town with no grown-up there, and you would be totally safe. No one would hurt you. And if you ever were confused, you could go up to any grown-up and say, "Could you help me?" And they would just stop and they would help you. And you were always, all the people around you were always kind and honest with you. And you were always kind and honest to other people. That'd be pretty amazing, wouldn't it? That would feel like freedom. So here's the thing. To get happiness and safety that is real freedom, we have to take away another kind of freedom. So if we say we're not allowed to be mean to each other, then we can be friends. So you have to give up one freedom, being mean, to get this. I'm going to obey all the traffic laws and constrain myself to do what they say, and then we get safety and our lives. Okay? So that's the way it always works. You always end up having to give up one kind of freedom, a lower kind of freedom, to get a deeper kind of freedom. And our whole life is about which freedom do we want. So I'm going to read another story, and this is one I bet you know. A certain man had 2 sons. This is a story the Lord was telling. And the younger son said to his father, "Father, give me the portion of goods that falls to me." So he divided to them his livelihood. So he was giving all the money that he would get when he died to his son. Not many days after, the younger son gathered all together and journeyed to a far country, and there wasted his possessions on prodigal living. So here's him just at a party, but he was also doing bad things. He was just spending all the money that he had. But when he spent all, there arose a severe famine in the land, and he began to be in want, and he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him into his fields to feed the swine. And I don't know if you know, but in that culture, pigs were so unclean you didn't even want to touch them. So here he was having to look out for pigs, and because he couldn't have done anything else. And he would gladly have filled his stomach with the pods that the swine ate, and no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, "How many of my father's hired servants have bread enough and to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will go to my father, and I will say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight, and am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants." And he arose and came to his father, but when he was still a great way off, his father saw him and had compassion on him, and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. And his son said to him, "Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight, and am no longer worthy to be called your son." But his father said to the servants, "Bring out the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet, and bring the fatted calf here and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. For this my son was dead and is alive again, and was lost and is found." And they began to be merry. So the son began with money, and he was having parties, and he was doing all kinds of bad things. But then it was all gone, and he was hungry, and he was feeding the pigs. And this is the thing about being bad. We sort of know this, but we don't really believe it. Every single time we do something bad, it always ends up with us being in bondage. But then he went back to his father, and he confessed all the things that he'd done, and he had to live by all the rules that that he had to live in his father's house, and he didn't have any of the money. But I think he still felt more free because he was loved. He wasn't alone. He was taken care of. Now, the story continues that his older brother saw the party, and he got angry. And he didn't want to go into the party. And when his father came out, he got angry with his father and said, "You never gave me a party. You never gave me even a little goat, and now you killed the fatted calf, this really expensive, fancy meal." So he was kind of in chains here, wasn't he? He was filled with resentment and anger. So here's another person who was a slave for a time. But his father said, "It's right to celebrate because my son was lost. And he's alive. He was dead, he was alive, he's lost, he's found." And then he said something else. He said, "All that I have is yours." Because, see, here's the other part of, I think, why the older son was resentful. He's saying, "My little brother wasted all his inheritance, and now he's coming back. Is Dad going to give him more of my money?" The father said, "No, all that I have is yours, everything." And he was able to let go of the resentment. He was able to learn forgiveness. So I'm going to say something a little bit more for the grown-ups, okay? Here's a passage from New Church Teaching. Maybe it's one that some of you know. Freedom seems to entail everything that is in keeping with love and its associated delight, and non-freedom to entail everything at variance with these. That which is in keeping with self-love and love of the world, materialism, and with the desires belonging to these loves, seem to a person to be freedom, but that is the freedom of hell. That, however, which is in keeping with love for the Lord and love for the neighbor, consequently with the love for what is good and true, is true freedom, being the freedom that exists in heaven. And in the New Church, when we talk about this, we talk about the difference between license, I can do whatever I want, and true freedom, which is freedom from hell, freedom from negative emotions, freedom from inner resentments and ugliness. And the difference between these two is always truth, because license doesn't care about the truth. License is all about I want, right? And the thing about I want is it tells you all kinds of things that you actually don't really want long term, but right now you want it. I want to eat this junk food. I'm going to regret it later. I want to say this terrible thing. I'm going to wish I took it back a little later. Right now I want it. I want to curse at other drivers. I want to yell at the ref. I want to tell jokes that I wouldn't tell my mother. I want to engage in lies and lustful fantasies and character assassination. I want. That's what license is about. Can you guys remember, if you can think back this far, when you got to control your own bedtime? And what a wonderful thing that was. I get to do what I want. It's a pretty deep desire. But that's our animal desires. So last week, talk was about noticing the ways in which lies are keeping you blind, are trapping you. And now it's about the way truth sets you free. And the mind shift that I want to invite you to think about is to think about the true things that you know that feel like burdens. They feel like rules. They feel like chains. We all have those, right? There's some things we want to obey, but there's some of the rules just feel like rules. And instead, start to see them as windows towards freedom, because every single thing that the Lord taught is a window towards freedom. So can you look at those places and say, I'm so glad the Lord gave this rule, because it is something that is designed to set me free. Not just with everything. I'd invite you to just pick a couple. Where are some places where you feel that burden of the rule, and embrace that truth as an opportunity to be free? So our recitation was about the children of Israel coming into the land, and if they followed what the Lord said, they were going to have food every year, they were going to have safety, they were going to have all the things that they needed if they followed him. So they had to obey the rules, and then they got the good stuff. And that's the Lord's promise for us. If we follow him, we're going to get what we need. Not necessarily what we want. I want doesn't always win. But we will get what we need. And in time, in the next life, we're also pretty much going to get what we want. So when we make the Lord's truth the center by living it, then we are free indeed. And I just love this picture, because isn't that something that we all want? That kind of freedom. Not with being able to stay up all night, but feeling the openness of being safe and at peace and filled with joy and connection. Amen. You can go back. Thanks. I invite you to bow your heads for a prayer.